Hey friend, in today's watercolor tutorial, I'm going to be teaching how to paint this landscape of Everglades National Park in Florida. Without further ado, let's get painting. In today's tutorial, I will be using some Cadmium Yellow, Rose, Purple, Payne's Gray, and Black. I'll also be utilizing some brushes here. I've got my size 12, size 2, and size 6 round Princeton brushes, and the paper I've taped down here is a size 5 by 7 inches. To get started, I am just going to saturate about 2/3 of the way down from the top some water. And we are going to get going on our sunset here. And I'm just using my larger size 12 brush just to get this nice wash. Then from here, I'm going to switch gears to our size 6 brush. And I'm going to first start with our lighter color. I'm going to start by applying some Cadmium Yellow, just using the belly side of my brush here to do some broader brush strokes. And I'm just going to do some of this yellow in about, I would say, half of the length here of the wash. I'm just going to add a couple pops of some bolder highlights of the yellow, a more saturated amount, just like so. I'm just allowing it to bleed out and do its thing using some wet and wet watercolor technique. The next color I'm going to use is some of this rose color, and I'm just going to do a wash all the way up of just some kind of watered down muted tones of this rose color. And then I'm going to add just a few touches of the rose color to kind of give a pop of orange as it kind of intermixes with the yellow. It'll kind of give it this really nice, beautiful kind of rust orange in the sky. I'm even going to layer just a touch of yellow directly on top of the transition of the yellow and the rose, just to add a little bit more orange into the sky. Okay, next up, I want to add some purple, and I'm just going to layer some purple into the top area of the sky. I want to be mindful not to mix the purple with any of the orange or any of the yellow, because that'll kind of create kind of a muddy kind of look that we do not want. Those colors do not form the perfect marriage. So I'm just going to take a watered down damp brush with no paint on it, and I'm just going to kind of lightly buff out this transition area just to help kind of blend the purple softly into this first top inch of the painting. Next, I'm just going to take some watered down Payne's Gray, and I'm just going to apply it towards the very top area. And then I'm going to take some plain water, swish my brush off of that Payne's Gray, and just tap it on my paper towel, and just take a clean brush to help kind of soften that transition, just like we did when we first applied the purple. Love it. The next thing I want to do is just add a few pops of some more vibrant rose, because I feel like the rose got kind of diluted into mostly orange, and so I'm just going to layer just a couple pops of this beautiful rose color using the tip of my brush. Okay, and now I'm just going to do the same technique of rinsing my brush off and dabbing it on my paper towel to take a slightly damp brush here just to kind of help buff out that transition of color, just softening kind of some of that rose color. being mindful that I do want to keep some pops of that yellow visible. And if any of your colors just really go to town and kind of take over too much, you can always lift some color by taking a paper towel, just a little bit of a paper towel, to just blot any colors that kind of overtook any area too much. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and let this vibrant sunset just sit and dry, and when we come back, we will move on to the next step. Next step of the painting, I'm going to use my size 12 brush again to do a nice water wash, and I am going to just paint just right up against that yellow line of the sunset, and then do a few inches of water. And next up, I'm going to take my size 6 brush this time, and I'm just going to take some plain black, and I'm just going to paint just a bit of black along this line here. And from here, I'm going to rinse my brush off and just kind of buff out that kind of harshness there. And there's going to be kind of a misty fog effect happening here. And then next, I'm going to take my size 2 brush, and taking some of that black, I'm just going to do some almost just dot-like textures here, allowing some of that black to saturate and create deeper values of the color. And this is going to mimic a silhouette of some trees. And I can even just take my size 2 brush here and kind of buff out some of the transition areas of the deeper saturation of the black. But I'm basically just doing this kind of loose dot-like texture, just layered all against each other, allowing some flecks of the sunset to pop through the trees as well. And you could see the black is just blooming as it touches the silhouette of the water, which is totally fine. And I'm just doing some irregularly shaped kind of tree foliage silhouettes here. You could see I've got one taller, just a couple smaller ones. And I'll maybe do like a random tall one here, just to keep up with some variety in the tree line. And I'm just going to bring this one area towards the right just a little bit higher. Again, just for some variety. And I'm just going to relayer just a few touches of some more saturated black over these tree areas here. Maybe I'll bring this area just a little bit higher so you can just kind of play around with the layout of the trees. Then from here, I'm going to switch gears to my size 6 brush. I'm just going to grab a little bit of water, and I just want to kind of buff out some of these transition areas while this area is still wet. If this area dried on you a bit, you can always add another wash of water and then a little bit more black just to re-bleed some of the black. Then from here, I'm just going to add a few touches of some gray, which is basically watered down black. That's all it is. And I am just going to add just a few pops of this gray, so that way we get the effect of the mist. And I do want to be sure that the silhouette tree area is deeply black and saturated, so you can always go in and add a few touches of some variegated deeper black tones up towards the top while this area is still wet. And then from there, just adding a few touches of the gray wash to kind of pop and add a little bit of variety in the texture and values of the fog. Okay, so next up, I'm gonna take my size 12 brush and do a wash all the way to the bottom, which is where our water is going to be. And I'm gonna add some water just all the way to the brim of kind of the fog, the gray foggy area, but not too overlapping, just a touch. And from here, I'm going to add some of our pink rosy color to start. And this is gonna be our reflective water. And I'm just gonna start with a wash of this color with plenty of water to kind of help buff it out. I'm just adding just a touch and then just taking my size 6 brush to kind of water it down just a little bit. Adding some more water to my brush as I go. And here, I'm just gonna buff out this transition area of the gray to the pink. Just by going in that area a little bit and kind of taking the tip of my brush and doing a slight kind of zigzaggy motion, just to help blend those areas a little bit nicely, a little bit nicer. And from here, I'm going to take some yellow. I'm just rinsing my brush off in between transitioning these colors. And I want to add a few pops of yellow in the center area. And I'm just doing a left to right horizontal motion, leaving some slight gaps in between. Couple areas I want to be kind of more saturated yellow, so I may just add a few more pops of this yellow to stand out. And if needed, you can always lift any color that kind of took over a little bit too much by taking a clean brush and then drying it off with your paper towel and just subtly kind of applying pressure to lift any pigment that kind of went a little bit too far. And we're just really allowing the water to kind of work its magic. Now here I have kind of a bloom starting to form, so to help that not kind of happen basically, I'm going to take a clean brush and again just add some texture in this area and just kind of repaint, not really with any paint actually, just add some more water to help take away that bloom of the transition of the pink and the gray. Wonderful. And then from here, I am going to take some purple and I just want to add a touch of purple and a little bit of Payne's gray. And I'm just going to take just a little bit of purple to start. And I'm just going to do kind of a thin horizontal left to right motion in some of those kind of rosy areas here. I'm allowing this color to just kind of bleed, adding plenty of water to help kind of lift and transition that color so it doesn't overpower any of the orange too much. We don't want a lot of brown action in here to make the water kind of more muddy. We really want to have that nice reflection of the sky into the water. So I'm just kind of subtly layering here. Then from here, I'm going to take more of that rose color and I'm just going to add a few kind of pops of it into the water. keeping up with that horizontal left to right motion. And then from here, I'm just gonna take a wet brush just to help kind of guide and smooth out any transitions of the color while this watery area is still wet. Alrighty, and then from here, I'm gonna take just a touch of Payne's Gray to add a little bit more depth to the corner areas up towards the top. Oh, sorry, up towards the bottom here, but reflecting the top of the sunset a little bit more. Keeping up with that horizontal brushwork. Then from here, I'm just taking a damp brush and just buffing out those transition areas a little bit more. And as the Payne's Gray dries, you can always relayer some more of it because it does tend to lighten up just a little bit. And from here, I am just gonna let this water reflection set and dry. And once we come back, we will start to kind of build some more silhouette details with some palm fronds and things like that. Now that my water is dry, I'm gonna take my size 6 brush and I'm just going to use some black next. And I'm going to outline kind of the silhouette of some of our land here that's popping into the water. And I'm just doing kind of a curved line here where the silhouette is slightly more into the water on this left side and it goes up. Then I'm gonna leave a little bit of a gap and do another line towards the right that's kind of angled downward. And I marked this little spot here because that's where some of our shrubbery and kind of greenery silhouettes are going to be popping. And I'm just carrying on some irregular texture here, kind of hill-like texture, just along the top there. And then here, again, the silhouette is very jagged and kind of angles upward towards the top. Next, I'm just gonna take my size 6 brush and just color in this area with black. And from here, I'm gonna switch gears to our size 2 brush to add some kind of subtle palm fronds and kind of bush or tree texture. Starting towards the left, I'm just gonna do a similar tree texture that we did up towards the top there. And I'm just gonna do some kind of texture dots, allowing some of the background to pop through. I'll do just a little bit of that as well over here, just a touch of it. Then towards the right, I'll just have maybe a smaller area that has that texture. Then from here, I am going to start my palm frond with a curved kind of rainbow line, just like so, using light pressure with the tip of my size 2 brush. And then from here, all I'm doing is just some really light brush strokes on the right side, and then mimicking those same brush strokes, kind of mirroring them on the left side as well. Again, using super light pressure. And I do want the palm frond to kind of elongate towards the end here. Next, I'm going to do another palm frond towards the left. And again, I'm kind of mimicking this subtle kind of rainbow curve, and then just repeating that step by having some really just light pressured kind of wispy brush strokes on either side. And then I may just do a smaller one, a tinier palm frond towards the right. And again, just adding that nice kind of wispy eyelash texture using the tip of the brush. Then from here, I want to just do just a silhouette of some kind of weeds or some grass here, just by doing a few kind of textured vertical lines. Just adding another kind of simple texture that isn't like the layered dots like we did before, but just keeping up with some variety here. So just some kind of layered kind of weed-like texture, kind of grassy texture there. And then from here, I'm going to start this side, and I'm going to add just a bit of that grassy kind of simple texture over towards the tip of the end of this ground here. And then from there, I want a couple palm fronds as well. And I'm just laying out a couple of the palm fronds, 2 here and a couple over here. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and add the foliage on either side of that base stem. From here, I'm going to mix a little bit of black with some Payne's gray. And I'm going to add plenty of water to that color mix there. And using my size 2 brush, I'm going to start just adding some shading towards the bottom of this kind of island feature here. And I'm going to put it right up against the bottom of that area. And while that blend of the Payne's gray and black is still wet, I'm going to take a wet size 2 brush, and I'm just going to kind of buff out that shaded area a little bit more. And then while it's still wet, I'm just going to take my size 2 brush and add just a few kind of horizontal streak-like motions. Just to add some more shading and texture to the water. I'm just going to add a touch more of that color just to bleed out in that wet area. Continuing to kind of build the shading. And I'll do the same thing on this right side. Next up, I want to add some silhouettes of some grass just on this left corner. And I'm just using my size 2 brush just to keep layering these elements here in this corner by adding more and more of them kind of layered on top of each other, some kind of angled in other directions, not just coming in towards the right, just to give some more variety there. And again, using very thin pressure with the tip of my size 2 brush. And sometimes if you don't have enough water on your brush, the black may not carry across very well. So if needed, just keep reloading with a little bit more water. All right, and at the end of just a few of these, I'm gonna add just like a really skinny oval shape. Now I am forgetting the name of this kind of like foliage or weeds here, the ones that have kind of those circles towards the top. So if you know what the names of those are, definitely comment below because I am running a blank. But I'm sure that you've seen these at lakes or something like that. And I'm just adding a few kind of sporadically at the tips or the ends of a few of these grassy kind of ends here. And you can relayer some more foliage as needed. Last but not least, I'm going to take some black using my size 2 brush and paint just a few silhouettes of birds in this kind of foggy area here. And I'm using very delicate pressure with my brush, and I'm doing these kind of subtle V shapes. They look like V letters that got sat on. So I'll do maybe some where they're a little bit more flat, and then some where it's more of a true V shape. And maybe I'll put one just over here. That one's a little bit more flat. And I'll add just a couple more. Alrighty, and then from here, I'm just gonna take my brush and just take some gray, so just some watered down black. And I just wanna add a few touches of black in here because that is actually going to be our reflection of some of these birds. And once I've laid those out, I'm just going to take some plain water with my size 2 brush and simply just kind of water that black down just a little bit. I hope that you enjoyed this watercolor landscape tutorial on Everglades National Park in Florida. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any further watercolor tutorials.